All through these talks I've been touching very lightly on a theme which anyone who was treating the natural loves from a Christian point of view would have emphasized far more strongly a few centuries ago. If the Victorians needed the reminder that natural love is not enough, the old theologians were always saying very loudly and sternly that natural love is likely to be a great deal too much. The danger of loving our fellow creatures too little was less present to their minds than that of loving them idolatrously. In every wife, mother, child, and friend they saw a possible rival to God, and so, of course, does our Lord. There was therefore no question in my mind of simple dissent from the older doctrine. There has been a difference of method. I have taken a roundabout way. In my critique of the loves, I have stressed their rivalry to God less than their failure without God to be completely or to remain securely the sorts of love they profess to be. And this, I hoped, might make it easier for us to believe, and not merely to acknowledge verbally, that they are, after all, second things. Because to let us down while legitimately attracting us is the very characteristic of a second thing which has been treated as a first thing. There is a quite different and highly respected way of trying to divert us from inordinate love of the creature, which I find myself compelled to reject, though I do so with trembling. In words that can still bring tears to a man's eyes, St. Augustine describes the desolation in which he was plunged by the death of his great friend Nebridius. He then goes on to draw what he thinks the moral. This is what comes, he says, of giving your heart to anything but God. All creatures are temporary. It's the very nature of the universe that all individuals should pass away and make room for others. You can't have a temporal universe on any other terms, just as you can't have a spoken sentence unless each word, after filling the air for a moment, passes away and gives place to the next. To give one's heart to a created being is therefore to court disaster. If love is to mean in the long run happiness, not misery, it must be love for the only beloved that does not pass away. Now, of course, this is obvious and excellent sense. Don't put your goods in a leaky vessel. Don't spend much on a temporary building. There's perhaps no man in the world to whom such canny maxims make a stronger appeal than they do to me. As a boy, though I liked chocolate better, I always bought toffee. It lasted longer. I'm almost incurably cautious. No gambler, a safety-first man. Gilt-edged securities for me, however low the rate of interest. Of all arguments against excessive love for a fellow creature, none makes so strong a natural appeal to me as, be careful, this may mean suffering. But when I respond to this natural appeal, I feel myself to be 1,000 miles away from the spirit of Christianity. If I'm certain of anything, I'm sure that Christ did not teach in order to confirm my congenital preference for safe investments. And who could conceivably begin to love God on the ground that he is a safer investment, offers better security? Who could even include it among his grounds for loving? One has to be outside the world of love, of all loves, before one thus calculates. Such a view doesn't raise us above the natural affections, it sinks us below them. Eros himself, lawless and rebellious, when he prefers the beloved to happiness, is nearer love itself than this. For our Master is one who shed tears at the grave of Lazarus, who mourned over the approaching ruin of his earthly country, and, loving all, yet had one disciple whom in a special sense he loved. And even if it were true that precautions against heartbreak were our highest practical wisdom, even if it were possible for that reason to choose the love of God, would this choice be a precaution? That God offers us security, not gilt-edged but solid gold, I well believe, but not security from sorrow. His love too may break the heart. A broken and a contrite heart awaits most surely those who follow that road most faithfully. For Christ himself that road leads to, why hast thou forsaken me? There is in fact no escape into security along the lines St. Augustine suggests or along any other. To love at all is to be vulnerable. Love anything and your heart will certainly be wrung and possibly be broken. If you want to make sure of keeping it intact, you must give it to no one and nothing, not even an animal. You must carefully wrap it round with hobbies and little luxuries and routine and avoidances of entanglement, and then lock it up in the casket or coffin of your own selfishness. And this means that in the long run, the alternative to tragedy, or at least to the threat of tragedy, is damnation. For in that casket, safe, still, and unventilated in the darkness, it will go bad. Not broken, but finally unbreakable, impenetrable, resistant to all good and joy. It's like hiding the talent in the napkin, and for much the same reason, I knew thee that thou wert a hard man. Christ did not teach and suffer, in order that we should become more cautious of our own happiness, even in our natural loves. If a man is not uncalculating and that way reckless in loving his earthly beloveds whom he has seen, how will he be so in his love for God whom he has not seen? We shall draw nearer to the love of God, not by attempting to avoid the sufferings inherent in any love, but by accepting them and offering them to him, by throwing away all defensive armour, taking all risks, descending, when he so wills, into all tribulations. As so often, the words of our Lord himself are at once far fiercer and far more tolerable than those of the doctors. He says nothing about guarding ourselves from earthly loves for fear they should bring us suffering. He says something that cracks like a whip about trampling them ruthlessly underfoot when they hold us back from following him. If any man come to me and hate not his father and mother and wife and his own life also, he can't be my disciple. The crack of the whip is there, I think, because the strength and up to a point legitimacy of the affections is taken for granted. One doesn't bring a battery to demolish a molehill. But what, for practical purposes, does the word hate here mean? That the Lord of love should be telling us to hate, in plain prose, anyone, to cherish feelings of vindictive resentment, to gloat over another's misery and rage at his happiness, is of course out of the question. To hate in Scripture means primarily to set aside, discount, reject, almost to fail as an examiner fails a candidate. The duty of, on occasion, hating those whom we love remains, even when thus interpreted, a very terrible one. And it's also very hard to be sure when the occasion has arisen. Some of us are too ready to think that it has, others are not ready enough, and all of us are likely to be mistaken as to which sort of people we are. Sometimes a wise friend knows, more rarely he will tell us, most rarely of all we may endure to be told what we are. The extent to which a man can discern and then perform this duty will depend on the extent to which his whole life has already been transformed by the Spirit of God. If it has, then the natural love will already have been placed under and in some degree converted into agape. The cavalier poet could reasonably say, I could not love thee, dear, so much, loved I not honour more, because his mistress was a cavalier lady who already admitted the claims of honour. There are women, and in other ways not bad ones, to whom the mention of it would be meaningless, just one of those silly things that men talk about. If natural love could in the cavalier lady be thus submitted to such a quarter god, for he's not even a demigod, as honour, how much more should it in a Christian be submitted to agape, that is, to love itself. That brings us back to our main subject. In particular instances, we may have to renounce a natural love altogether, but mercifully, the duty laid upon us is more often that of retaining it and subjecting it to, indeed transforming it into agape. These natural loves must accept the transformation even for their own sakes, must submit to become second things if they're to remain things at all. For when God rules in a human heart, though he may often have to dismiss some of the native authorities, he often continues some in office, and by subjecting their offices to him, gives them for the first time a firm and durable basis. I know we've been told that when half gods go, the gods arrive, but that seems to me a very doubtful maxim. A heart empty, swept and garnished of its half gods may expect, as we have been told, an inrush of visitants anything but divine, and I think we've seen it happen in our own generation. I would rather say, when God arrives, and then only, the half-gods can remain. What then is agape, or love itself? We know God is love, and again, not that we loved God, but that he loved us. We must not begin with mysticism, the soul's desire for God, and the wonderful foretastes of our enjoyment of God, which have been vouchsafed to some even in this life. The best mystics will warn us not to. We must begin with God's love for the creatures. Love itself, God's love, is utterly dissociated from need. It is manifested first in creation and then in redemption. The doctrine that God was under no necessity to create is not a bit of useless and abstract scholasticism. It is essential, for it reveals the nature of agape, that which in itself is complete, self-sufficient, eternally blessed, which has no wants to satisfy, creates what it doesn't need, creates because being love it desires to give, and gives, seeing in the very moment of creation the necessity for the crucifixion. Insofar as we become capable of that sort of love, agape is entering our lives. That element in our natural loves which consists of our need for the beloved is not love itself. The desire to be loved is not love itself. The delight in being loved is not love itself. But don't misunderstand. This element is not a sin or impurity in our love which we must try to expel. The need for the beloved is no more a sin than the need for one's breakfast. To be loved is the soul's food, as bread and meat and vegetables are the body's. A loss of appetite for either would show something wrong. Both are innocent, but both are merely natural. One is not yet in love itself for desiring to be loved and delighting in it. Just in so far as something beyond and other than this need and delight enter our natural loves, so far has agape entered them. And of course, all our natural loves have in them at the outset something the very reverse of agape. In maternal affection you may say that is not quite so obvious. It is in one sense concerned with giving, not getting. But then this giving itself is need. We all know what the cows say when the milkers are late. And I think all the givings, all the cares and toils which proceed from storge have this character. Storge, like charity, is humble and suffers long. Friend in relation to friend seeks not his own. Eros counts all things as dung to win the beloved. None of these loves desires the object's good simply for the object's sake. Yet each in its own way imitates love itself. Each makes us at some moments and to some fellow creatures what we must come to be at all times and in all relations. They can tune the instrument for that music, but they are not it. As preliminary disciplines for agape, they are demigods. As substitutes for it, they are idols or a kind of mirage. The invitation to turn all natural loves into agape is never lacking. And this, to a Christian, explains why disappointments and frictions must and should await us in them all. Foolish people interpret these in their own way. If only I'd been more fortunate in my children. If only I'd married a different man or woman. If only my friends were more considerate. But from the Christian point of view, these rubs are reminders that the worldly love requires conversion into agape. I don't mean that all those who are not consciously attempting the Christian life take the fool's way. Thousands of unbelievers, or merely nominal believers, get over the rubs and jog along on the whole fairly well, summoning common sense and humour and habit and compromise to their aid when mere feeling is not enough. This is better than nothing, very much better than a life controlled by mere feeling. but what is better is not therefore best. This common-sensible give-and-take adaptability, which keeps so many families together, is not yet love itself, the gift of God. For Agape, God's love to the created is doubly a gift. He gives us his love, and with it the gift of loving. By receiving and responding to agape from him, we become able to exercise agape towards others. As a man feeleth God in himself, so is he towards his neighbour, said Tyndale. God, who has loved us into existence, loves us into the power of loving our brethren. What is not perhaps so generally noticed, he also loves us into the power of receiving agape, both from himself and from others. For here we meet a quite unexpected obstacle. On the natural level, we are full of the hunger to be loved, the hunger to receive family affection, erotic love, and friendship. And it might be expected that we had similarly a hunger to receive agape, but this is untrue. There's that in the heart of every man which resists and resents agape from his fellow creatures, or even from his Creator. We naturally want to be desired, to be found delightful, to satisfy worthily some hunger in others, to receive a love which is purely a gift, which bears witness solely to the lovingness of the giver, and not at all to our loveliness, is a severe mortification. We desperately need to receive such love from God and even from our fellow creatures, but we don't naturally want to. Our necessities and our wishes are in conflict. All those expressions of unworthiness which Christianity puts into the believer's mouth seem to the outer world like the self-depreciation of a well-bred Chinaman when he calls himself this contemptible person. In reality, of course, they are expressions of the continually renewed and continually necessary attempt to negate that false conception of ourselves and our relation to God, which nature is always impressing on us. No sooner do we believe that God loves us, then there's an impulse to believe that he does so, not because of what he is, but because of what we are, because we are intrinsically lovable. It's so easy to admit, but so hard really to believe, that we are mirrors whose brightness is wholly derived from the sun that shines on them. Surely, we think, we must have a little inherent luminosity of our own. As we are to God, so more obviously we are to our fellows. "I don't want any of your darned Christian charity," is a very familiar sentence. Of course, it often springs from an ignorance of what Christian charity is, more often from a well-grounded suspicion that Christian charity is not what we're really being offered, because, of course, much of what is called charity contains so much vanity, self-applause, and veiled contempt that it cannot but be resented. It is hard to bear agape from our fellows, and yet each of us needs it. There is that in each of us which simply can't be loved with natural love. Nobody can be expected to. Only the lovable can be naturally loved. You can't ask men to like the taste of rancid meat. It can be forgiven and pitied and loved with agape, not otherwise. Every listener who has had a good parent or wife or husband or child may be sure that at times he is the recipient of agape, loved not because he is lovable, but because love itself is in the other party. This we must learn, first to believe, then to endure, and then to delight in, and without guessing about it either. Such, I conceive, is the world of agape, a world of unbounded giving and unshamed receiving, where all blessed creatures need and know that they need nothing but God, and are therefore set free to love one another disinterestedly. And so your love shall be like his, born neither of your need nor of my deserving, but a plain bounty. I think those are drawing near to heaven who in this life find that they need men less and love men more, and delight more in being loved without being needed. For where agape is, there in some degree is heaven. In these talks I've spoken most about the power of agape to transform and preserve our natural loves. But I hope I'm leaving no one under the impression that that is agape's function, that she is the means and the well-being of the natural loves is the end. Of course, it's the other way round. Their ultimate value lies in their power to prepare us for agape and to provide, as it were, embodiments of agape when God gives it, natural altars on which the flame of agape can descend. It may descend elsewhere. Some will first know it in their relation with enemies, beggars, or criminals before they learn it in their private and natural loves. It may descend on some altars and destroy them. Sometimes agape to a desperately bad parent or spouse can arise only on the ashes and total renunciation of the natural love. Sometimes bereavement may be necessary. Nearly always there will be frets and rubs. Yet, somehow or other, this conversion of our natural loves into agape is necessary if those natural loves are to enter the heavenly life. That they can so enter, I hope and believe. The resurrection of the body, we may hope, includes the resurrection of what may be called our larger body, the whole fabric of our natural life with all its affections and relationships. But nothing will rise which hasn't in some degree shared the crucifixion. The fashion of this world passes away. Natural loves can become eternal only insofar as they have allowed themselves to be taken into the eternity of agape. And this always involves a sort of death. That element in my love for wife or child or friend, which it has in common with the love that great saints have felt for lepers and convicts and persecutors, is the eternal element in it. By that element, if at all, the rest of it can hope to be raised again. For it only is love himself, it only is holy, it only is the Lord. But all this time I have taken the love of God to mean solely God's love for man. St. John led me into it. I still think it's the safe and sober approach. But is there no more than this? Isn't the first commandment to love God? Yes. An old book raising the question, is it easy to love God, replies, it is easy to those who do it. As easy, that is, as for the healthy to be healthy, the happy to be happy, or the young to be young. There is indeed a way of loving God which is easy to none but possible to all, and we've been told it too. Inasmuch as ye did it to the least of these, my brethren, ye did it to me. We can see the face of Christ in every man and act accordingly. And there is also the love expressed solely in obedience. There is love for the humanity of our Lord, for the holy child or the sufferer. There is also the unsatisfied love thirst or longing for God. But of what is beyond all these, what is neither love of God in man, nor love in obedience, nor love of the man in God, nor love longing, of fruition in this life and foretastes of beatitude, I'm not the man to speak. Even if I had heard rumours or made guesses, I couldn't put them in this form. I'd need myths and symbols. All that can be said here is that even on those high levels, though something goes from man to God, yet all, including this something, comes from God to man. If he rises, he does so lifted on a wave of the incoming tide of God's love for him. He becomes nothing in that ascension. His love is perfected by becoming, in a sense, nothing. He is less than a mote in that sunbeam, vanishes, not from God's sight, but from ours and his own, into the nuptial solitude of the love that loves love, and in love all things.